You know, when Phase 4 was first announced, I really thought I was marveled out. But girl, I'm back in it full force. Now with access to Disney Plus, we've gotten more MCU than ever in just 1 year. So with the year coming to a close, I'm gonna go ahead and rank all the MCU movies and shows of Phase 4 so far. I'm excluding Hawkeye since at this point it's not quite finished yet with 1 more episode still to go. And I guess Venom? Does Venom count at this point? I don't know, but anyways, a reminder that this is completely my opinion, and I'd love to hear yours in the comments below. But for now, let's go ahead and hop through the multiverse. Okay, right off the bat, Eternals is not a bad movie. It's just my least favorite. But I'm gonna go ahead and start off with the positives. The camera work of this movie is freaking gorgeous, the visual effects have never looked better, and all the actors do a great job, with special shoutouts to Kumail Nanjiani's Kingo and Lauren Ridloff's Makari. But the biggest issue with Eternals is that there was just way too many characters to really flesh out their story, and it fell into the same pitfalls that the original Joss Whedon Justice League fell into. There was just too much to juggle in the amount of time that they had, and thus, nothing really got a chance to shine outside of a few cool fight scenes. And also, Eternals ultimately felt like a complete filler at this point in the MCU. The interconnectedness of the other MCU properties is what keeps us coming back. And at the time, I thought maybe this will have it one day, but for now, I'm good with just watching it once. What If was an interesting move on Marvel's part. This was Marvel's first big animated outing and was really cool to see so many ends of the MCU being represented, especially Chadwick Boseman's last official step into the role of T'Challa. I also thought it was really great to see so many of the actors reprising the roles, even in animated form. What If's concept is really cool in theory, and I know what if scenarios are pretty big in the comic book world, but as a generally casual viewer, I couldn't help but think, what's the point in watching all of this? In good old Marvel fashion, I know it'll play a factor eventually, but like Eternals at the time, I kept thinking to myself, how is this all connected to the overall story of the MCU? I also could not get used to the faster pacing of each of the episodes. Literally, all of the episodes would have benefited a lot from just 10 more minutes of screen time, to let the line readings, scenes, and pacing just breathe a little bit more. Finally, Natasha frickin' Romanoff gets her own solo movie after ScarJo has played this character for more than 10 years. Even amongst all the drama with Black Widow from the beginning all the way to the bitter end, I think what came out was still pretty solid. Yes, Taskmaster was a huge miss, and overall this movie really felt like it should have come out when the story actually occurred in the timeline. However, I did really enjoy meeting the rest of the Widow family, from Red Guardian, Melina, and especially the introduction of Yelena Belova. She was hands down the best part of that movie, and I can't wait to see more of her beyond her appearances in Hawkeye. I do really appreciate that this movie pieces together all the little tidbits we've been getting of Natasha's backstory throughout the first 3 phases, but it was hard to shake the feeling that this movie was just a little late after Natasha's sacrifice in Endgame. Of the Disney Plus series, I've always seen Falcon and the Winter Soldier as the forgotten middle child. Released after WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier felt like a nice homecoming to your standard Marvel fare, and was a pretty good one at that. Anthony Mackie and Sebastian Stan do some of their best acting in the MCU to date, and their chemistry on screen really gives life to every scene that they're in together. Though unexpected on my end, I really appreciate the series diving headfirst into the idea of a black man becoming Captain America, and really hitting home on some of the issues that we're dealing with today. Zemo was also a nice, pleasant surprise regarding where they took his character, but I wasn't really a fan of some of the other writing decisions, particularly with Sharon and John Walker. But overall, I think this series definitely deserves another watch for those who may not have appreciated it fully the first time. Generally, through the grapevine, I hear that Loki is most people's favorite Marvel Disney Plus series so far. Sorry to say that I'm not one of those people. However, Loki is still a freaking great show. The stylistic choices of how they brought the TVA to life was really cool, with both vintage and futuristic elements being fused together. The show also introduced a whole new layer to the MCU and provided more context to the idea of the multiverse becoming a reality. My personal favorite part was the weird but also endearing love story between the 2 variants, Loki and Sylvie, which for whatever reason makes so much sense. And I also gotta shout out the nice and subtle confirmation of Loki's bisexuality. The show was a great character study that looked into one of the most complicated and morally gray characters of all of the MCU. And I can't wait to see what they're gonna do with season 2. WandaVision is my favorite Disney Plus series so far. I said it, and you can't change my mind. Let's start off with Lizzie and Paul hitting it out of the park with their acting. The way that they adapted into each era seamlessly, and were still able to provide the nuances of their actual characters, was so great to watch. And that's not even mentioning Agatha Harkness and her whole deal. Kathryn Hahn is a gem, and I'm so excited to see so much more of her in her spin-off series. The slow burn of WandaVision really had the theory community exploding, and even if some of those things were really blown out of proportion, Mephisto, watching the series and being a part of all the theorizing was such a fun experience. From Wanda finally getting her outfit, to her being called the Scarlet Witch, Wanda finally gets closer to the character that we know and love from the comics, and makes me that much more excited to see her again in Doctor Strange 2. I don't really know if I'm biased because I'm Asian American or because I'm a fan of Simu Liu, but Shang-Chi was such a good movie. For starters, the fight scenes are some of the best action I've seen in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and that's saying something. The bus, the scaffolding, the bamboo arena, not to mention the Tony Leung as Wenwu becoming one of the best MCU villains right up there next to Killmonger and Hela. Additionally, the strong supporting female cast all deserve a shout out as well. From Awkwafina, Meng Zhang, and even frickin' Michelle Yeoh. What I love about this movie is the seamless integration of Asian culture and ideals into a Marvel property. They had the freedom because they kinda had to right the wrongs of comics past, but what they ended up with was a film that felt so relevant to today's Asian culture. For example, Katie struggled to find something that keeps her happy but also pleases her family, or even Shang's understanding that he is both his mother and his father's side, which can be representative of Asian Americans grappling with the balance of Eastern and Western identities. It was just, wow. Oh my god, this freaking movie! This freaking movie. I'm really gonna keep this as spoiler-free as possible, but when I say that you have to watch this movie, you have to watch this movie. I laughed, I cried, I was hyped, and I left the theater just sad that it was over. Let me start off by really giving props to both Tom Holland and Zendaya for doing amazing jobs in both of their roles, and really grounding the story in this movie. No Way Home really keeps you gripped the entire time, jam-packing it full of stuff, but still somehow feeling very well paced. And of course, with Doctor Strange in the mix, the visuals and special effects are top-notch. I mean, I can best describe this movie as a giant roller coaster ride, with the best parts being the beginning and the end. The implications that this movie leaves with you, especially after the post-credit scenes, really makes me and everyone else so excited for both the future of Spider-Man and the MCU. And that, my friends, is my ranking of the MCU shows and movies of Phase 4 so far. Have a different opinion? Probably. But hey, that's what the comment section is for. This for sure won't be the last MCU video, so make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. We'll see you next time. Later.